Okay, and so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to walk through what it's going to be like to, what the software looks like, what the application looks like, and just kind of walk through what it's going to be like to fill that out. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box or unmute. Happy to answer questions as we go along because others might also have those questions. So don't be shy. For the most part, you should receive an invitation to apply. So what's going to happen is if in almost every case for our regular funding, you'll get an application because it depends on where you are in the cycle, whether or not it's a funding year, whether you need to fill out an application. So you'll get an invitation to fill that application out. And then for the other two funding programs, which I'll mention here in a minute, the Sarah Rounds Price Equity Fund and the RFP, there's an initial screening application that you have to submit in order to get in that pool of funding. And you get an invitation to apply for the full application. So in every case, you should get an invitation to apply for these fundings, but want to see once you get that, what it'll look like when you're in the system. So you'll have an account. So you'll create a username and a password, and you'll log in just like we do with every other software that we have. And the landing page looks like this. It's got a little blurb about the different funding streams we have. If you're not familiar, Community Investment Fund is our regular funding that comes through the campaign. The RFP is kind of more strategic funding that we have set aside for specific purposes. And then the Sarah Rounds Price Equity Fund is our most recent fund focused on equity building programming. So this is what the landing page looks like. And you can see the different funding programs listed here at the top under funding programs. You see the 3 different funds that I mentioned. I see a combination of those on the call that will be Community Investment Fund and a couple that would be RFP. So I think if you have any confusion about which application, that would be your first question. But if you're being invited to, well, I'm going to back up here. So if you click on the Community Investment Fund, you're going to find some information about that fund. Just a little blurb shows the due dates. And you can apply here, but as I mentioned, you will be receiving an invitation to apply. So it should fall under My Applications. If you're in your account under My Applications, you should see your application here. If you've been invited to apply for those funds. So that's what we're hoping. If for some reason it doesn't, then you can come back and apply for the funds by clicking these buttons. But when you're in the application, you should see a funding request here. What I recommend with this software is the default here is a recently listed view. And so if you haven't been in here at all, there's not going to be anything underneath this. It's going to look like you don't have any applications. So my first reminder is always to go to all for the list view and pin that. So then when you come back, it should have your applications there. But that's kind of one of the quirks about this system here. So when you're ready to complete your application, you can come back in stages. So if you get the application started, you can save it and come back to it. It should be here under your account. But we're going to get into the application, and the status is in progress. So we haven't submitted the application. If it was submitted, it would say submitted, and we wouldn't be able to edit it once it's been submitted. But this one is in progress. So what it looks like is there's some different navigations on the side, the different pieces of the application. And so if you've been applying for funding, this all should be familiar. We didn't make any significant changes to the application per se. We've just transitioned it to an online format. So most of it should feel familiar, but you'll navigate through the application through this sidebar here. So first, this is information in our system. So for some reason, we don't have the organization's name in here correct. You can request to update that through this option here. But you can't actually change it because it's in our system on the back end. But you can save, and then you can come down here to the next bar. I like to just kind of navigate here on the side because I feel like it's easier than scrolling through the bottom. But so you're just going to come along here and you're going to fill out the information that's being requested. In most cases, it's pretty straightforward. There's a couple questions that I think may come up, so I'm going to just walk through this a little bit, but the basics, ED name, contact information, information about staffing numbers, and where the agency is headquartered. Part of what we're trying to do is understand a little bit more the regional approach that many of our partners have, and it's really just for information collecting. But for some reason, if your headquarters were located somewhere else, we would want to know that. So the next section is board of directors. We just want to know the number of board members, and in some cases, we know that our partners have regional boards. So the Community Investment Committee wants to understand how many of those members are actually local to Tippecanoe County. So that's information we're asking. Asking information about how frequently you're meeting, number of board meetings you have, and kind of a little bit of information about the diversity of the board. I don't know how much detail we need, but just want to kind of understand the makeup of the board and what level of engagement and oversight the board has. Pretty straightforward there. This one is just asking, how much are you asking for, and what counties do you serve? So this is not what counties is the money being asked for, because we're still assuming that money is being used in Tippecanoe County. We just want to understand from a service standpoint what counties you serve. Then we're going to get into some demographics. So this is numbers. So we want to know how many people you're serving. And this also is should be tailored to United Way's funding. So if your program serves 10,000 people, but United Way funds a specific program that serves 250 people, we want to understand, related to the United Way funding, how that works, and we'll get into this. So this is general demographics of the organization. So how many people you serve, breakdown, these are pretty standard: race, gender, ethnicity. There is a category, if you don't collect this information, just put the number in unknown for any of these categories, because I know some programs don't collect it and some do. So if you are
Jennifer,
collecting
can I ask
it,
a question here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so on the demographics, on the previous section, you were asking for the communities that we served, right? Mm-hmm. And then this one is the demographics of the demographic background of the people that we serve. Mm-hmm. If our program is serving, let's say, 500 people in multiple communities underneath the same program, are we counting the communities outside of Tippecanoe County also, or just the counties within Tippecanoe, or just the demographics within Tippecanoe County within that program?
That's a good question. I would say the Community Investment Committee is going to be focused on Tippecanoe County. So the demographics should reflect what you serve in Tippecanoe County, if you're able to narrow it down.
Okay, thank you.
To the community. Yeah.
Thank you.
So demographics is pretty straightforward. Here we have the opportunity to just kind of briefly highlight how we want all the organizations that we're funding to align with the Cradle to Career commitment. And so this is an opportunity to just share some information about programs or services that you have and how they align with that. And you can do as many or as few. If you have one specific program that aligns, then you just talk about that one program. If you're an organization that has many different, more broad services, then you'll just provide information about each of those that you feel align. Mission, vision, values. That's pretty standard on applications, I think. The unduplicated services, this is something that we've asked on applications before, is just wanting to understand what other duplication might exist, or if there is duplication, is there a specific justification for it? Maybe it's a geographic location. Just wanting to understand, see if you're aware of other programs that are similar, and just understanding the landscape there. Next question is about diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. So you'll answer. I just found a I'm going to have to get with the developer on that because it doesn't let me check yes. Okay. And then if you do have a statement, you'll just put that statement in here. The other piece that we ask about is collaboration. So we have different subsets of groups here that you can kind of talk about how you collaborate. And in the past, we've seen on applications, they'll just list a bunch of partners, but that kind of creates more questions for the Community Investment Committee than answers. So if you're listing a partner, kind of how we have an example here, if you're listing a partner, just, real brief kind of how you're partnering or what ways are you partnering, just to provide a little bit more detail and not just a list of a bunch of partners, but you can, lots of different options here for people, organizations you might be partnering with. Measurable outcomes. This is a piece I imagine that we'll get a few questions about. It was hard for us to build this out. We're building it out into a system that's very data driven. And some of our funded partners are able to do this a lot more simply than others. And so I imagine there'll be some questions here, but we tried to make it as clear cut as possible, but feel free to stop me and ask questions if you have them. So the first piece is just a written summary about the data and the trends that you're seeing. Maybe your program, for instance, Boy Scouts, maybe your program has really blown up. And so maybe you have an opportunity just to highlight that information there and maybe why you think what some contributing factors are. Total population served. This can be duplicate from the previous demographics, but it may not necessarily be. So we have that there. How often are you collecting this information, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, or maybe you have some other process for doing that? We do have an example here. So if you get in here and you forget or aren't quite sure what information goes where, we tried to guide you as much as we could as far as what goes where and answer some of the questions that you may have. But as far as the measurable data, the first one is just going to be about the numbers served. And in some cases, there are different programs that United Way funds. And so you'll have a few programs listed and the amount of people served. In some case, it could just be one program. If we're just funding one program, then it would just be one program. But you would list the program and then the number of people served, whether it's adults or youth, and the total number served. If you have a target number, you can put that in. If it's something that you don't have a target for example, like the domestic violence shelter, I don't think there's really a target number for the number of women that are in the shelter. So you wouldn't put a target number for there. But if you do have a target number for your program of number of people that you want to serve, go ahead and enter that target. That just helps us understand, are you where you want to be, or are you not? Is there growth? And you can list up to, I think it's up to 10 programs here. I don't know that any organization does, but this is just the number served. And then we're going to come into the other measurements, and this is going to be the measurable outcomes based on your affiliation agreement with United Way. And so if you have, I don't know, if one of them is number of clients receiving financial services, that would be the measurement description, and then you would put the number, whether it's adults or youth. And so gave some examples here, but you have the ability to add multiple. So each time you add a measurement, it's going to drop down and create more. And we have the ability to put 10 on this page and 10 on the other. So if for some reason we're collecting a lot of information, there should be enough space for you to include all that, but that's how that works. So you take the measurements in your affiliation agreement and fill out that information. So if this is your measurement, you're going to put it in the description, and then if they're all adults, you'll put in the adults. If you're also serving children and under this metric, then you'll put in the number of children as well. And it could be, it's possible that it could be a percentage, not a number, depending on your metrics, but this is where you'll fill that in. There's another page here if you need it, but if you don't need it, then you can just ignore it. Financial condition is another area that I think we're going to have some questions on, because in the past, we've just kind of asked for your financial documents and we've done a lot of sorting of that on the back end, but we're hoping that we can get some of that information on the front end, and that will make things a little bit more efficient. Some of the information we can provide to our community investment committee might help us with that. So EIN number, I think all of you should have access to that information. Most of this information is going to come from your financial statements. If for some reason you don't have audited financial statements, then it would be whatever financial documents you do have, whether it's a review or I think in most cases, everybody does have an audit. And the financials are going to be based off of the most current completed year. So in this case, if you're going in and you're filling out this application right now, it's going to be 2021 information, financial information, so that we have a full year of that information. So you're going to put in the budget, the fiscal period date, so that we know what you're referencing. If you have a calendar year fiscal period, then that's going to be January 1, 2021 to December 2021. If for some reason you have a different fiscal year, then that's what we'll just want to know what our frame of reference is. And then how much of your revenue is received from United Way. This is a dollar amount, not a percentage. So if you receive, $500,000 from, 5 million, wouldn't that be nice? $500,000 from United Way, and your total revenue is 4.5 million. That's that, and this is based off of your financials. So beginning net assets, ending net assets. I think one that's going to create questions is this daily cash required. And we've tried to kind of explain what that calculation is here, pretty straightforward, but you might need to get with your financial peeps to understand. That's basically you taking all non-cash expenses divided by 365. So how much does it cost your organization to operate every day? And if you don't already know that information, it might be interesting for you to have that.
Jennifer, hi. Can I ask a quick question here?
Sure.
Hey, it's Vanessa at the Red Cross. Hi, good to see you. Hey, so as you may remember, we're big and we have one audit for the entire American National Red Cross. And so if I'm pulling this information from our audited financial statements, it's going to be for our national organization, but we do budget at a county level. So it'd be much more probably interesting and accurate to give you county level information. Yes. How do you want an organization like ours to approach this section?
That's a really good question. I think as much as you are able to narrow it down on the local level, that's probably preferred, because I think we would want to know how much of the Tippecanoe News services are we, how much funding do we provide for Tippecanoe News services versus the whole, because we know there's other pieces that go into that, and you probably receive funding from other United Ways. And so I would say probably as much as you can narrow down as possible on kind of that larger scale. I think probably Girl Scouts is going to be in a similar situation.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Yep. Personnel expenses, I think we also put a note here. That's just, what are the costs of the people? So it's salary, benefits, it's all of those personnel costs. And that's just interesting for us to kind of see trends more so than anything. Any questions about measurable outcomes and financial condition? Because these are the two places I feel like we're going to get the most questions. But we tried to make it as straightforward as possible, as much as we could.
Jen, can I ask a question?
Oh, hi. Yeah. Hi, Jason. I can't see everybody.
I'm transfixed by Brian's picture on his Zoom. Like, I can't tell if that's like his high school graduation photo or what, but he looks so young. Or maybe I'm just old. So this is more of a comprehensive application question. So we do this the first year, we upload this information. Will any of this carry over year so that we're not duplicating efforts?
That's a good question. I have to think the way that it's set up right now, there might be a way to do that. I would say right now, the thought would be it would be a new application, but with the way it's set up, there may be a way to have some carryover.
Okay, because I could see that there could be variation year to year in financials, that sort of thing.
Yeah, some of it will need to be updated. Yeah. Each
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
But from like demographics, those, is there a huge variance year over year? Probably not. I guess I'm just looking at this from a time perspective. Whatever can be front loaded based on information we've previously inputted is preferred.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I will take that back and look into that.
Thank you.
So next section here is investment impact. And this is really just trying to get to, and we've been talking with our partners and trying to understand a little bit more specifics about how you use United Way funding and how it supports operations, whether it's focused solely on programs or whether it's more agency wide. So investment impact, we just kind of want to understand, here's a written statement on how does United Way help your organization's funding needs. How much, so it says spending this year, but this is the most recent completed year. So we would want to know if you're filling this out this year for 2021, how much of United Way's funding was that? Chances are that's going to be how much you were funded, but if you could put that in there, that would be helpful. And then this is programs / categories. And we did another little example help here. In some cases, if your organization is the program, if you don't have different programs that United Way is funding, I'm going to use an example like Right Steps. So Right Steps is the program, but there are different categories within Right Steps that we fund. So whether it be scholarships for parents to receive childcare, that would be a category. And then just any details to share about that. But in other cases, it may be an actual program that we're funding. Just wanting to get a little bit more detail about how you're using United Way's dollars. And it's helpful for the Community Investment Committee to understand that. In the case that we have, we're in a position to give additional dollars, that information is helpful. If we're in the unfortunate event that we've got a reduction of funding, that information is helpful to know if we have to make cuts, what's going to be affected. So that really information is just really helpful to the Community Investment Committee when making those decisions. So as much as we can understand how you use United Way's dollars, we've tried to build that in here the best that we can. And so I think you have the ability to put more in here. So it's kind of one of those things, the more you need, the more it populates, but most people probably won't need that many categories. We also have a place for attachments here. So if you're filling out your application, there are those required pieces of filling out the application. And there's an ability to upload, and then you're just certifying that you've uploaded those documents. And once you've completed the application, you're going to review it, go back and review it. And when you're ready to submit, you'll submit. It's going to ask you, are you ready to submit it? If you are, click next. Success. That's the message we like to see. So now you can see all this information, but you can't edit it. So you don't want to submit it until it's ready to go. So that's the application piece. So I know we answered some questions throughout there, but are there other questions about the application? And then I'll talk about kind of the reporting requirements and other requirements.
Jen, I didn't see anywhere about character limits. Are there character limits in any of these boxes?
I don't think we set up character limits. No.
Okay.
No.
Or I guess for clarity.
I usually, I would say whatever concise message you can share the information that you think is necessary is preferred, rather than trying to sift through a bunch of language. And the format in which they're going to receive the applications. If you're submitting significantly long responses, it's going to be a little bit hard to read those. So I would say the more concise, the better, but there is not a limit in case there's a lot of information you think is relevant to share.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, so the next piece, and the RFP application and the Sarah Rounds price application are going to be very similar. So I'm not going to take time to go through those specific ones because it's going to be very similar to the CIC with maybe some slight variations. So the next piece is requirements. So in some cases, you're in the middle of a funding cycle, and there's going to be requirements for reporting. There's going to be requirements for documentation. And so what will happen is, what will happen, oh, they're not here, is that you will see under requirements, a requirement specific to that application. And once you, and it'll be something like an economic, let's see what the words are, economic report. So then you'll have specific places that you can put your report, or if it's documentation, you will have the ability to submit, attach different documents. So if you're applying this year, we'll have those documents, but next year you aren't applying. So how do you submit those? Because those are annual documents. We want the budget annually. We want the 990s annually, the audit financial statements annually. So midway through the process, when it's not a funding year, you'll have the ability to upload those documents through this portal. And there'll be a requirement here. I don't know why it's not working there. There will be a requirement that shows up that you can click on and work through that, whether it's just uploading a file or whether it's putting information in for a report. So some of you, if you are up for funding this year, you're going to come in here, you're going to go through the application process, you're going to upload the documents. If you're midway through a cycle, you're going to come on here and you're going to either do some reporting or you're going to upload some documents. So all of you should be in this system. If you're receiving funding from United Way currently, you should be in this system at some point here in the next couple months.
Jen, in the off year when we have to update our financial statements, will it prompt us when we're in here, like filling out our report?
Say that again, Kyle.
So when we're in this window and we're in an off year, will it prompt us to update those financials?
Yeah, you should get an email that tells you that there's a report due.
Okay.
Any other questions right now about the portal?
Hey.
Jen, can you say, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's Vanessa again. Yeah. On the demographics, it would be easier for us to do percentages than numbers, just because we have some better information around percentages year over year than numbers. But would you rather have last year's actual numbers, or would you rather have, 3-year average percentages that might translate really well to the next year?
I'd say in most cases we would probably want, because I think it's built in on the back end to do percentages that you can't see with the numbers. So I would say best case scenario, you have the previous year's numbers. If for some reason you don't, or that's not a good reflection, then I think you have the ability to put percentages in there. I think it would just be a preference to do numbers, because I think it's built in on the back end to do those percentages.
And then just to clarify, you just want Tippecanoe County, not Tippecanoe and Montgomery, if we serve both counties?
That's also a good question. But yes, for the purpose of this, because at this point, if you're receiving funds from Montgomery County, that would be a different application. We have not brought Montgomery County agencies into the system yet.
Okay, thanks.
We're
That's
still new in our merge here and trying to get everybody up to speed with that. So that's a good question though.
Jennifer, can you save this midstream?
Yes, yes, you have the opportunity. You can do one section and save and come out of it and come back to it. I would just make sure you hit save. There is a save button at the bottom of each section.
Okay, perfect.
Jen, you, this is Rose with Girl Scouts. You may have covered this. I'm sorry, I had trouble hopping on the first probably 3 minutes of the meeting. But would you, because this is a new system, would you then advise us to create a new account on here, or is there already an account? It doesn't matter what email I guess we use, because it might be, you know, mine in your system right now, for example. Should we try to have it match up with what we've used as our main contact in the past?
So you should get, if you get invited to fill out an application, which is what should happen in most cases, you should also, if you don't already have an account, which this is a new system, so nobody's going to have an account, it should send you a second email to set up that account.
Okay.
So it will be, everybody will be creating a new account for this system.
Okay.
And I would say the account should be whoever is submitting the application.
Yeah. Awesome.
Any other questions? I think it's kind of one of those things, it's a little hard until you get in there and start playing around with it. But feel free when you do, so that the application you should be invited in the next couple of weeks. If you are up for renegotiation, you should get an invitation to fill out an application. And then those applications will be due July 1. All right, well, if there are no more questions, I am going to say thank you again for hopping on. I hope this was helpful. I hope I didn't just create too many questions. We hope it's going to be a nice system. It's definitely going to help streamline some of the reporting and things on our end, but we also hope it's user-friendly and straightforward for you as well. So we'll look forward to launching this and seeing how it all rolls out. And we'll appreciate your patience as we work through this.
We appreciate you taking all of our questions every time we have them moving forward.
Yes, I imagine there'll be a few, and that's okay. We're all going to learn together. All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks.